What does a term initially used 170 years ago in one of the most influential and compelling books in American literature have to do with the cognitive health category? And what was the term that Henry David Thoreau used in his 1854 nonfiction book Walden to criticize society's tendency to devalue complex ideas in favor of simple ones, seeing this as indicative of a general decline in mental and intellectual effort? Brainrot. But that term has taken on a new significance in the digital age, especially over the past year or two. Brainrot is a term used to describe the phenomenon involving the constant consumption of short, fast-paced content that can overwhelm the brain, leading to decreased attention spans, mental exhaustion, and a reduced ability to engage with deeper, more meaningful activities. Initially gaining traction on TikTok among Gen Z and Gen Alpha communities, brainrot became so widespread that Oxford University Press even named it its 2024 Word of the Year. But what does brainrot have to do with the cognitive health category? Age-related cognitive decline is a natural process in which certain brain functions become slower or less efficient as we get older and aren't entirely reversible. And this healthy aging consumer cohort, which seeks to maintain or prevent decline in brain function, has historically been the primary focus of functional CPG companies selling cognitive health products. But the demand concentration has dissipated more recently as a wider variety of consumer needs across demographics has driven segmentation within the cognitive health market. And that categorical evolution could have grown roots from the Great Shutdown period, something I mentioned within a January 2023 content piece. Whether it was working from home while also balancing kids at home, or maybe just battling against the mental barrage of a completely new day-to-day reality, it brought a lot of new first time customers to cognitive health supplements. That's where we were, but where we're going is away from reactive, kind of triage like behaviors and more into proactive consumption. The cognitive health market now encompasses more young professionals, college students, gamers, and middle aged adults, most of which are realistic about the trade offs required to live a high achieving life. If they want it all, from the continual quest for knowledge to the desire to stay on top of their game in and outside of the gym, it won't be without a higher stressed emotional state. The constant distractions from 24/7 connectivity will have its negative consequences, even if they aren't in that last third part of their life. But while that doesn't happen often, it's important to quickly note that strong segmentation duality can be an extremely powerful force when considering the potential impact of a functional CPG industry trend. So, with sharing that previous content excerpt, I'm not trying to infer those consumers seeking prevention of age-related cognitive decline aren't still a key portion of the market currently, but fast forwarding a few years, and it's hard to overlook the emerging performance segment of the cognitive health category. Furthermore, it's difficult arguing that anyone looking to achieve more within their daily lives today or in the future won't be forced to contend with a digitally evolved version of Thoreau's commentary on how society is using its free time. But what if I told you that the term brain rot gaining mainstream prominence could prove extremely important in further expanding and evolving the cognitive health category? Considering today's definition, brain rot is a negative cautionary term for what might happen to us if we get too distracted, but it provides an equally important chapter in the cultural conversation about humanity and technology. And with brain rot being lifestyle-induced, behavioral, and largely reversible with conscious effort, which is quite different compared to age-related cognitive decline, some ignorant individuals might suggest a simple fix to stop doom scrolling, put your phone down, and cut off the information overload completely. But that naive advice overlooks how technology isn't going away anytime soon, likely becoming even more pervasively integrated into our lives with advancements in areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and automation continuing to shape the future. Moreover, technology may change cognition without necessarily harming it, right? Additionally, I believe the secret to human success has always hinged on our use of tools and adapting to new kinds of environments. Therefore, this is just another new kind of environment with successful adaptations centered around managing the use of these technologically advanced tools and not letting them manage us. So then, as weird as it might sound to say out loud, brain rot moving into the mainstream lexicon could have the power to democratize the cognitive health category. And that's because brain rot doesn't age discriminate, or for that matter, discriminate based on ethnicity, gender, or any other characteristic. In fact, very rarely is anyone completely protected today against experiencing mental fatigue from social media information overload. Now, in stating that, purchasing behavior doesn't necessarily change materially just because a societal problem has been catapulted into the minds of more consumers. And there's pros and cons to when a functional CPG category is democratized. But something that usually helps push the consumer awareness down funnel through consideration and into purchasing activity is having that category creating brand that unlocks massive commercial success by meeting consumers where they're at with the ideal product development variables, eventually triggering competition that further evolves the market. And while there's a multitude of competitors currently within the cognitive health category, it hasn't seen a liquid IV or vital proteins type breakout brand that creates the category by pushing democratized consumer awareness down funnel, unlocking massive commercial success. But in stating that, I also acknowledge this business phenomenon could occur in the near-term future from a strengthening subsegment of the cognitive health category. But while I'm acutely aware of the complex, nuanced issues surrounding a toddler's screen time, being a new father to a 1-year-old, my professional authority is not parental advice on cognitive development best practices. Though I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge the growing search interest and demand for cognitive health products specifically for children. Instead, this content piece has always been aimed towards the direction of adults navigating fast-paced, round-the-clock modern lifestyles. I'm talking about peak performers like you and me. And it doesn't matter about our individual pursuits or how we define success currently because we're all connected by our desire to achieve more in daily life. Similarly, we're all connected by our desire to combat modern digital distractions, as we recognize that excessive screen time, quick dopamine hits from notifications, and constantly bombarding our brains with low-effort content can lead to reduced attention span, lack of creativity, decline in critical thinking skills, and eventually decreased performance. So instead of providing you with a typical collection of retail sales data trends to validate what you already intuitively assume, that peak performers are more frequently seeking out fast-acting, cognitive-boosting, functional CPG products in convenient formats to improve their daily life, I wanted to end this content a bit differently by adding value through an antidote surrounding my recent personal journey to minimize brain rot. And I totally understand if you think, who cares about this one peanut in the gallery of many, but I wouldn't consider myself some special snowflake, maybe a more introspective, analytical snowflake, but not particularly special, which can be oddly more powerful within today's recursive and self-referential nature of digital platform algorithms. But you might be wondering, what got me to this point of implementing strategies to reduce brain rot? And I'll be completely honest in stating that I probably waited longer than typically advisable, mostly because recognizing the early signs of brain rot felt eerily like symptoms of mental exhaustion stemming from the before-mentioned newborn year 1 stage. But the trigger for me was realizing that after putting my son down to sleep, those harmless evenings doom scrolling on the couch, spending way too much time on my phone, started negatively impacting my ability to handle any task requiring sustained mental effort. And not only that, but I started having no interest whatsoever in even tackling those types of mentally strenuous tasks beyond normal workday hours. Since I've always prided myself on sustaining long periods of cognitive work, both professionally and personally, this realization was probably more alarming to me than maybe other people. So then, what has been the steps I've taken to avoid brain rot being a real problem? And maybe because my deep domain expertise is focused on the intersecting functional CPG categories, you're most interested in which cognitive health products I've used throughout my brain rot reduction journey. But I think it's always prudent to initially cover foundational lifestyle choices because they usually have an outsized impact. Moreover, while the influencer-filled digital media world will almost always lead you towards information overload, I've subscribed to a keep it simple, stupid wellness framework that places daily emphasis on 5 powerful actions: moving my body, making smart food choices, prioritizing sleep, managing stress, and practicing mindful media consumption. And within that practicing mindful media consumption action, I've also focused on curating my platforms, limiting multitasking, and choosing appropriate mediums. Since much of my professional life, probably like yours, revolves around interacting with media and technology, it can seem impossible to limit screen exposure, but I've tried to be more intentional when making these decisions. And then finally, which cognitive health products have I implemented into my daily routine to reduce brain rot? Much like my before mentioned wellness framework, I prefer to keep things simple. Maybe not from a product formulation perspective, but with preferring to take a few multifunctional products in convenient formats compared to ingesting a few handfuls of single ingredient supplements daily. And I kind of think about consumption occasions in 3 convenient zones: early morning, lunchtime, and after work. In my early morning occasion, I'm looking to minimize the effects from my high stress professional lifestyle and feeding my achievement mindset. But since I work out before my family wakes up, I've already consumed caffeine in the form of a pre-workout powder and avoid consuming more caffeine until lunchtime. Lately, my rotation of available pre-workout powders has included my favorite brain energy ingredient, Cognizin, which means my only early morning cognitive health product is a mood and stress support product that contains KSM 66 ashwagandha. Then at lunchtime, I consume a performance energy drink with my meal because obviously having that beverage cooler filled with them in my office makes it super easy. And finally, my after work consumption occasion is seeking a balance between focus and relaxation with a creatine supplement and products that contain a magnesium blend and functional mushrooms. But one last point, I'm purposely not providing exact brand and product names, mostly because I'm in a unique situation where a lot of stuff gets sent to me from industry colleagues and clients, so I'd hate to seem like this product pusher or industry plant trying to get you to purchase specific XYZ products for commission. Instead, the purpose of sharing my product routine was to gain perspective on evolving and emerging variables of the cognitive health category. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.